Yeah. Oh, wait. Yo, it's on. Yes.
We are
Aha.
on.
A week and a day late. That's okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Yeah, we're good. Life is hard, man. It's busy. We got things to do. The Patreon page is lacking these days. Donations are slim, so we got day jobs. We got to do some stuff.
Absolute chaos. Cats, dogs living together.
It really is. Nobody said pimping was easy, so here we go.
What you got?
Some Elijah Craig bourbon, good stuff.
That is significantly more expensive than this Evan Williams 1783 that I'm drinking.
I never buy any Evan Williams stuff.
Well, they got some new stuff. The small batch that's like
Yeah.
halfway between the normal stuff and then the single barrel.
Yep.
It's at an appropriate price point that I like.
How much is it for a fifth or whatever? Ish.
Under 20.
Oh wow.
18 or 19.
That is a price point right there. That's like bum whiskey, Dan. Come on.
No, it's the other
Look,
stuff.
I don't care, dude. Whatever you like.
Is like 16, and then with just the extra like $2 or $3, you get a whole much better flavor. You can go to the single barrel stuff where it's like 20, 25,
Yeah.
at least. So
I think this is like mid 30s.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's usually where I land, like low to mid 30s, some stuff in the 20s, and if I'm feeling saucy, I'll grab a bottle of the 40s and try to keep that for
like a
less.
Maker's 45 or what's the number there? 54?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't bought Maker's Mark in a long time. I went to buy some the other day. All they had was like the half gallon. I was like, oh. I mean,
walking around with that giant thing,
yeah,
red thing on top.
I just feel it doesn't even fit my liquor cabinet.
46.
I don't even know where I'd put it. Oh yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, so I had Mexican food for dinner and a giant margarita, and I'm really tired. So, see how this goes.
Yeah, that's okay. I've got.
Not drunk, just tired.
We don't have to go a whole hour because I got plenty of stuff to do. But
well, we say that, then we usually end up going a whole hour anyway. It's like, oh, we're just gonna do a quick one, and hour 20 minutes later, like, shut it down.
Yeah. Well, we've had some laughs. You know what, Norm?
I haven't I've only been vaguely paid attention to what's been going on in the news. I think it's all the same. Blah blah war, blah blah. Social unrest, blah blah. Culture war, everything. Everything's the same. Nothing's changing right now. Not that I expected it to, but
yeah.
Good.
I found myself getting. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like small minds discuss people, average minds events, great minds discuss ideas. Like, I try not to get too into the weeds of being like, well, this person did this, and then they did that, and then they're a jerk. And then, did you hear what happened with this? Okay, I've graduated to an event now. Like, oh, well, they did this, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, at some point, can I get to an idea? Because, I was getting irritated, they just sort of quietly admitted, oh, yeah, that whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, oh, yeah, that was actually, that was true. That's right. And it's like the way they print retractions months later, and no, there's no consequences or anything for it. Yeah, and it's crazy. There's a certain amount of people that'll just never know that, And I was no fan of Trump, but it was a pretty slim election. So, could that have affected voter turnout? People have been like, these people, would that have turned some people that were like, Biden, yes, enough to be like, I'm not even going to bother, right?
Yeah.
And imagine how much different the world would be. Not the world, but imagine how much different, not necessarily saying that everything would be better, because I'm sure some things would be much worse. Mm-hmm. But And all because of one news story, and then the few people at the top decided, no, we're not going to let that go through. Like, okay, it's who becomes
Yeah.
president of the United States. That's not the worst thing in the world, right? I mean, it's a big deal, right? But what's going to happen when something later, when they can just decide, oh, people shouldn't know this.
Yeah, that's a relatively terrifying fact of life that we now live with. Well, or no, we've lived with before, or maybe just more people are awakening toward it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I heard whatever, it's a poll, so whatever that means. But like, the votes in the swing states, like they're like, well, if you had known this fact about Hunter Biden before, would that have maybe affected your decision to vote for Joe Biden? There was like 9% of people said yeah, probably, or like lean that way. So like 9% in swing states.
yeah.
Especially when they're close, man.
Yeah, and those purple counties, the suburbs right out, because the city hubs are always blue, and then the rural areas are always red. Then it's the suburb counties that are purple.
Like for sure, like Georgia, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. Those were big ones that went for Biden at the end there.
Yeah.
So who knows? Yeah, I don't know. No, whatever. Again, working in hypotheticals, but yeah, but no, the idea of just the general gatekeepership of the news and what's important and what you're allowed to see and what you're actively banned from providing. That's the super crazy thing, is that it wasn't even like they just like didn't show the story. They took people that did show it and freaking kicked them off their platforms. That's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, claiming it was Russian disinformation.
I know.
Not disinformation, right? But it's like, what? There was no evidence for that. There was more evidence for the actual story than for the reason not to post the story. So look, the system's corrupt. It has been for a long time. That's not news, right? And sorry.
Wow, crank it.
So a news story about a negative story about a political candidate doesn't get run. It's like, don't worry, there'll be more.
Yep.
Right. But what's going to happen when, I guess the best thing that Joe Biden has going for him is maybe his incompetence and his inability to get things done. I mean, that's also a negative, but it's like, imagine if he was like a psycho, but very organized.
Right.
Right. So
it's like a Putin getting things done, man.
Yeah. So
invading, crushing enemies. Yeah.
The White House being, I don't know if I find it hard to believe that there wasn't a call from the Biden campaign headquarters to, who's the guy who runs Twitter?
Well, it's not really Jack Dorsey, but
yeah,
I
forget that. There's like anyway, like,
yeah, there is.
I would find it hard to believe that there weren't some conversations like, hey, if you could do us a favor, it's like, so imagine if that was coming from like a real psycho, and they had control over basically the flow of information. Like that's dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Like say like we bombed some other country or whatever, and they go, oh yeah, well it's because there was here's a real example. Say the people who discovered that the whole WMD thing was bullshit. Imagine if we had our current media climate back then. And then as far as everyone in America knows, oh yeah, it was WMDs. We had to go in there and get that guy, And then that truth never comes out.
Yeah, it never comes out later. Right. Although it took like 20 years later for it to come out, but whatever.
Well, I mean, people were highly suspicious of it even at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Well, I mean, it'd be like now, like they're like really forecasting a cyber attack. Russia's gonna strike back at the U.S. on our infrastructure through a cyber attack. That's happening, Dan. It's coming.
Yeah.
We have soft targets.
So we all need to be ready. Like this podcast is brought to you by McAfee Cybersecurity.
Right. So like, if one comes, if there's a cyber attack, who the hell? Like, who's to trust anybody? They can say it's anybody. I mean, they're gonna say it's Russia, and who's gonna go? Yeah, no, actually, I get this forensic evidence because I looked into it, and I'm like a super security person that can look into like our grid system, and it wasn't Russia. No one's gonna believe that person, even if they have some credible evidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that person might get suicided.
Oh yeah. So yeah, no, it's the mis and disinformation age is well upon us, and it's maddeningly
it's very much psychological projection. The people who complain the most about misinformation and disinformation tend to be the ones purveying it.
Oh yeah, they are. They are the peddlers of it generally. Yes, I agree. Like, yeah, right. Or the ones that
would that also
or
include us though?
yeah, I was to say as soon as I just said that, I was like, now
We
I would say
complain
the
about
people, the people in power that now then use the law and or want to use their power and position to use the labeled misinformation to disinformation as a weapon.
Correct.
Against
Yeah, the
other
difference
people.
between them and us is that we're not telling anybody else to shut up.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We're just saying, it's misinformation, that's disinformation. But it's like, you're allowed to say that stuff. You're just an evil person if you do. Yeah, that is a big difference, though, So
Yeah.
I like how we both saw the same thing. It's like, oh, shit, shut up.
Oh, wait.
Damn it, that was me.
I got to change my definition so I don't look like a dick.
Hey, no, that's legit, though. That's self-reflection right there. We both had that same moment. We were like, okay, we're making a criticism of something that we both do. Wait a minute. That's a healthy move. Yeah. It's so free. It's breathtaking, man. They're just like, that whole thing was, never mind. It really happened. Sorry. Not even sorry. No sorry. Just it happened.
Yeah.
And
my new favorite phrase is, what's the difference between the truth and a conspiracy theory? And they say, about 6 months.
Yeah, right. A couple of Alex Jones podcasts. The people are talking about that, and they're just like, yeah, now, there's like people that are hearing this for the first time. And they're like, I know this sounds crazy to you and our audience or the people that listen to this show or read this blog because like we've talked about it and we covered it. But they're literally human beings for the first time realizing, holy crap, that was actually true. I kind of remember something about that. But, because like there's people that aren't in that like that Twitter sphere where there's like the political Twitter or, Facebook and stuff. So if that comes out on the national news, then you're just like, what? What happened? I wasn't aware of that.
Well, I guess
and that's crazy, man. Yeah, dude. I mean, there's 300 million Americans. What? Only half of them vote. Not even half of them vote. What is it?
I would say it's in the 20s or 30s.
Yeah. So whatever percentage of that people vote, and then those people that are aware of it, they still vote. It's crazy. It doesn't take much, I don't think, really, to move the needle if you have that much influence over the information that gets out. That's pretty. I don't know. Again, you control the mail. You control information. Newman. But I don't know. What are you gonna do, man?
I don't know. I've been thinking this a lot about.
You're gonna start banging Russian hookers and doing blow and crack and taking pictures of yourself. That's what I would do. Get 3 laptops and just throw them all over the planet, Dan. Just lay them out there. They'll do wonders for your career. You'll get a nice cushy job at an energy factory somewhere. Energy company. I work at an energy factory. Manufacture energy.
Simpson, eh? Sorry, he's one of our drones from Sector 3.
7G.
Whatever, 7G. Okay.
All right, whatever. Okay, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, I had this thought the other day. I was like, every conversation I have about like current events, in some way it could be solved with nuclear power. I sound like a shill for the nuclear energy industrial complex, but it's like all the things that's happening right now, somehow it's made worse by the fact that we don't have enough nuclear power.
Yeah, nuclear power is good.
Because if everybody had enough nuclear power, we have the technology to do it safely, then Putin wouldn't have nearly the balls because he wouldn't have anybody else, dependent on him, right? And so we wouldn't have the inflation we'd be having because this part of the supply chain crisis is gas prices and those sort of expenses and stuff like that. So inflation wouldn't be happening as bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely help. Yeah, the counterfactual of like if it wasn't Joe Biden or Donald Trump on inflation is kind of bullshit. I think there would still be pretty rampant inflation that was coming down the pike no matter what. I mean, when you freaking pump 5 or 6 trillion extra dollars into the economy in like 2 years, that money's got to go somewhere. So there was no stopping that thing. So like, it's not really fair to be like, oh, inflation's all Joe Biden's fault. And even on the energy stuff, I think we talked about this before. I mean, it takes a while for that stuff to trickle down, or trickle up.
Well, but it's speculative though. I mean,
yeah. On that, there was a certain degree to get for sure on just oil. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like the speculative stuff, like the cost of your food going up over the last 2 years wasn't a result of gas being at $4 because gas was like $2, but food had been going up steadily. You know what I mean? that inflation's been going on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed gas prices went up last year
Yes.
pretty quickly, but the rest of the inflation didn't really start happening until like this year. Like,
I don't know. I feel like the food's been expensive for a while.
really?
Maybe not. Yeah. Like maybe at the tail end of the Trump administration, food started going up. I thought, and I could at the time.
Well, I mean, you can. I don't know. My guess is, I mean, you would expect those prices to spike immediately during the pandemic shutdown, right? Because supplies are low. I mean, everything's thrown out of whack or whatever. But they didn't really, right? But it was once things started to reopen, and then like demand outstripped supply. Right, because then you have the whole these like complications with the ports being closed and things trying to get shipped in and truckers and stuff. A lot of that comes from like overzealous COVID restrictions.
I agree
That weren't entirely science based. And like unions,
politely stating, yes.
Right.
Well, no, and then like like the housing market. I mean, sure, that's a huge function of like interest rates and stuff like that. But like again, that's all inflationary as well. So whatever. There's no just like one thing that causes everything. That's all I was saying. But,
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I would maybe things would be a little better if Trump was in office. In certain ways, I would probably agree with that. But who knows?
Partially, yeah.
It's better to have a sentient human being than a brain mushed, senile, husk of a human being in there as the most important person on the planet. Yeah, I saw a funny meme or maybe it was a comment. I don't know. Like, we take a driver's license away from people who are like 75 and 80 who have like motor skills that aren't able to, navigate a car. Yet we give we give the United States exclusively control over to these people. It's just like, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's an odd system we've devised. I say we lower the age. Everyone, president 25.
Yeah.
I want TikTokers to be the president. That'll set this ship right. How
old is Zelensky? He's like in his 40s.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like he's in his 40s. He's not super old.
Yeah. 40s
like
is a good range.
He's Kennedy-esque. He's the Ukrainian Kennedy.
The Lion of Ukraine.
Yes.
Yeah, there is no perfect system, right? Like I heard people have been talking like because of our, and you may have heard this too, but like because of the nature of our democracy, like the checks and balances, like it puts us at a disadvantage compared to countries like Russia where there are no checks and balances, or China where they just have a regime for 3 decades, right? Because we got like it's hard for
that. Yeah.
It's hard for anybody who comes into office, like the Senate or presidency, to enact a long-term plan because, you get like 2.5 years and then you got to start worrying about re-election. That may not even happen.
Right.
And there's so much bureaucracy and red tape to get through. So like that's a feature, right? Because it prevents totalitarian control. But it just means that the arc of American government just goes like a freight train, like running on 1/4 power, right? But then these dictatorships over in Asia, there's no roadblocks at all. So if they want to do an idea, it's like boom, bullet train.
Yeah. If I want to build a city, I'm building a city in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Build that city. Yeah, you're right. It's a bug. I mean, it's a feature, not a bug. But like,
it's both.
Okay, it's a feature that is a bug, I guess. So yeah, sure. Now, if like, it's only really problematic when you allow the people that are in there for such a fleeting hot flash in the pan to have an insane amount of power as well. So I mean, things wouldn't move if people, if the Constitution actually did anything to stop, the government from doing anything it's not supposed to do. You know what I mean? If like you only worked within the delegated powers of the federal government was given to it by the states, then it's supposed to move slow. It's not supposed to be able to do all those things, and the power belongs to the people. Who power to the people.
Yeah,
and like that's how it was generally supposed to go, and that worked all of for 10 years. So that wasn't exactly a successful experiment, but
one wonders if it's even possible.
Yeah, I don't think
because of the natural. There's a certain percentage of the population of people that just want to be in charge of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
there's a certain percentage that want to be ruled and led, not followed.
And there's there's a different percentage that kind of overlaps with some of those that like it when people solve their problems for them.
Yes.
Right. So it's like okay, well, there's all these people that want their problem solved. Hey, I'll come solve your problems,
Yeah.
And then to make it even worse, there's actually a lot of legitimate problems that need solving.
Yes.
So, we need the government to fix certain stuff. And so, but if you can portray every issue like it's dire,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Again,
So, I mean, it all comes down to, I think we talked about this maybe last week or something, but it's like at the end of the day, all of these systems depend on honorable people being in charge of them, right? Because like any capitalism, socialism, whatever, they're all susceptible to corruption
yes.
because there's always going to be a power imbalance. So power imbalance always invites corruption. The difference is capitalism is slightly, or I would say specifically a capitalist democracy, is slightly more insulated from corruption than pure socialism because there you at least have competition in market forces. So that's how you get, America instead of Venezuela.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Because there are some moral issues with socialism, right? But it's not a bad idea entirely just because it's immoral,
Right.
right? If
Yeah.
people were wired differently, if people were better, socialism might work. It's just that socialism, all those things require centralized control, and that invites totalitarianism and sociopathy slightly more so than capitalist democracies do.
Right. Yeah, like the impulse for if you're taking socialism as just a general impulse of human interaction, it's not inherently bad. Like your family were inherently socialistic if you raise your kids and take care of them because they offer nothing for a very long time and you just provide for them and they just suck up your resources.
Yeah.
But that's not really socialism. That's just, you know what I mean? A collective mindset, and that's not bad, but again, that can be abused and it depends on the situation. And like you said, you have to be moral and you have to do that well because you can use that situation and be a horrible parent and
Correct.
you can do terrible, terrible things.
On a small enough, a family is a small enough scale that can work.
Right.
And you increase the scale,
Yeah.
the likelihood that it's going to be able to work in an efficient manner goes down almost to zero.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't oppose, like, it's people that like nationalized healthcare and all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't oppose that because I think the government provided healthcare is immoral or bad or wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I oppose it because I don't trust the government to do it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, if somebody could come up with a system that was a little bit more foolproof, and it had the right amount of checks and balances in there, where it's like, okay, we look about all the money we're spending on healthcare right now. We take that same percentage of our GDP, right? We got the right regulations and the right competition. We want to encourage innovation with the pharma companies, but not in a corrupt way where they're paying everybody. If somebody could come up with a system that worked like that, and then there was like an office of health, like the NHS over in England,
Ministry of Health.
right? Like, and then they could do that in a way where there was the correct amount. Like, okay, fine, I'm okay with socializing like fire departments and stuff like that, other things like, but so it's but no, healthcare is so much more complicated, and it's already so corrupt right now that what Bernie Sanders wants to do is just pay. Like, he doesn't actually try to fix the reasons that it's inflated.
Right.
He's just pouring more money into it.
Right.
And that's a problem. You can't pour more money into a corrupt system and expect it to uncorrupt itself.
Yeah, I agree with you on all that. Although I do think it's immoral also to, make people do that and to take their income against their will and make them do that. Now, if you want to do it as a voluntary system where the government's like, hey, you can opt into the system that we've devised and it's crackerjack, baby. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. You can volunteer and move your tax income into this for your medical stuff and or defer it to that. I say go for it. I mean, I don't think it's a wise idea, but I wouldn't call that immoral. Again, the immoral aspect of it comes from force and coercion in my mind. There's nothing inherently immoral about collectivizing or coming together as a group of people and trying to fix a problem. That's not a bad thing at all. So,
yeah.
But once it's not voluntary, it's no longer good, even if the outcomes are good, which they rarely are. So
what would your ideal system be? Would there be like when everybody fills out like a like a W-4 or whatever, they can opt into various optional government services that they, like
Oh no,
fire tax, police tax, and then if you don't do those, then you don't get the benefit from them, or how does that work?
yeah, sure. My ideal situation is there's no taxes and I don't have to worry about it. I pay for everything that I want, or I find groups of people that want to pay for that. Like my
Does that include
neighborhood.
like cops and stuff, or
Oh yeah, there should be way less cops, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
so your cop comes to your house like getting a quote on an HVAC repairs? Yeah. We got some hoodlums in the area. Yeah, it's gonna be about 80, $50 an hour. So we're looking at to give you a quote to solve the crime.
No, you pay for like a township could pay for security. A neighborhood could pay for security. In the same way you pay cops now. I mean, you just have dispersed throughout the area. A small geographical area, and
So every county has a little private army.
oh yeah, just like now. Right, yeah, just like now. I mean, yeah, except you have some control over it. You have say on who you want to give your dollars to. Now, if you wanted to say you could allocate it through call it taxes. I guess that would be a better system.
Or tribute. Isn't that what Jabba the Hutt did?
Probably. Yeah, it
You know,
sounds a
the
little
old the old gangsters, the old warlords, where everybody pays tribute to the crime boss in the city, and they provide protection and they regulate the economy.
right. So here's the aggravating thing about
Or is this feudalism?
Nah, I don't really know. But if you're like, all right, so you want to like dedicate some of your tax dollars to this service or that service, this service or that service, yeah, that would be better as long as there are other services that weren't outlawed. Like, so I can't say there was 2 state-run police forces in our county. I was like, okay, I can pick one or the other. I was like, well, what if I don't like that one? What if I use the third one? They're like, well, that's illegal. You can't do that. It's the same thing with health insurance.
We'll start our own police force with blackjack and hookers.
And hookers, blackjack. Forget the blackjack. But no, but it's the same thing with health insurance. You're like, oh yeah, go to the free market, buy health insurance. It's like, well, North Carolina only allows like 2 or 3 health insurance companies. There's like 40 of them. You can only buy them here, and they're the ones that are allowed in the state. If you wanted to buy them, back when there was even like a health exchange. So that's not exactly choice. You know what I mean? But yeah, no. When in general, more choice, more free market, voluntary exchange is good. I think you can do it with police force. I think you can do it with fire departments and those kind of social services. And if you don't, or even if you do, and there's free riders, well, whatever, dude. There's free riders now. I mean, that there is an inevitable stake in that, right? So, like, in anything you think
Some
of,
people,
so, like,
we're gonna have some people fall through the cracks.
no, I don't even mean that. I just mean people are gonna benefit from having police in the area that maybe don't pay for the police. That's very true. Just like people that live in low rent housing, if they live it in an area that's bumped up to nicer areas, they have nice roads to drive on. They have nice amenities around town. You know what I mean? They have a decent place to live. Now they may pay very low taxes. They may pay very low rent, but then there's a free ridership for the people that basically end up footing the bill for all the infrastructure around them. I mean, there's no way to get around that. That's just, I don't see a way to get around that, period. So that's not an impediment to a thing. That's just a fact of life. Like, those people just always like, okay, well then what? 10 people are going to pay for the police and they only get it. It's like, well, no, I mean, who wouldn't want to pay for police if they could? And if there was a way to do that through your insurance company, or that was part of your insurance, I don't know. I mean, people have insurances, and there's lots of creative ways to do it, but that's not. Listen, a lot of layers to get down to that point.
Yeah,
if we're
I had
arguing
the thought
that, we're doing pretty
maybe
good.
maybe you could make a distinction between things that are externalities and things that are personal.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
So if you wanted to, like, maybe a middle ground there would be like, okay, we are socializing on the city, county, state level things that might happen to you, right? So police, fire, natural disasters, FEMA, things like that. But like, we're not going to socialize things that involve people's personal like their own health care choices, right? So that would be maybe something different, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like you could opt into like health and be like, I don't know, because like the problem with the nationalized stuff is that like it doesn't give anybody ownership of their own situation, right?
Right.
It's kind of like UBI or any sort of thing where it's like, well, no, there's an inescapable part of life where your choices do affect your destiny,
Sure.
right? So if we had a lot of resources and everything was going great, the economy was booming, it's like, all right, well, if we have excess, then yeah, let's do what we can to protect our fellow citizens from things that aren't their fault, right? So that means we take care of the environment. If we come up with some sort of cool way, like miracle technology of making people healthy, like that's fine. But it's like when you start being like, okay, well, this person clearly doesn't take care of themselves, so everybody else has to pay for them. Like that's when it gets a problem because then it removes the incentive structure,
Yeah,
which is kind of what we have now.
Yeah, for sure we'd have that. It does remove the incentive structure. I mean, I don't know. Just like even just like the language you're using. I don't mean in a negative way. Just like, oh, we have this extra money, so therefore we use it. Like there is no we. There's no we. Like there's no they. Like we're not the government. We're not like that's not a thing. It's in politicians' hands, and they use that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like if you again, it can work on. It depends on the level you're talking about too. If you talk about your town, maybe that works. You talk about your neighborhood, it probably could work. Like if you're talking about your state, probably not going to work. Yeah, it's once you get like to the circles expand, the sphere of it. Like, there's just like it's what we're talking about. It works in the family. It doesn't work with 10 million people.
So, but I guess, and I'm not even sure if this is what direction this comes from, but it's like the problem with making things more localized is that things become even more variant, right? So that's how you do end up with like almost a feudalist sort of system where all the money's concentrated in one area, and then that can cause.
But it's not though. It is localized, right? Sorry.
Well, I'm thinking of like education. Like education is an area where like the nice areas of the state have much better schools, and than the poorer areas, because that's done on like a county or like district kind of thing. So like the tax money is that's how much money they have, right? So the densely populated lower income areas, they get to spend way less per kid, right? So one would think that if you could get everybody on the same page, it's like, look, how about we spread this around a little bit more, you even it out, and yeah, okay, your tax dollars here in Orange County, technically somehow get spread over to Durham County, but like that pays dividends down the road because you can make a direct link between the quality of education and like gang activity and crime and all these sort of things that affect everyone.
I guess, or why don't we just treat education like just let grocery stores do it, man? Let the grocery stores run education. Don't there's no reason to have the state do it. I mean, if you want to pay for fresh market education, you are welcome to do that. You can organize your life to spend $600 a week on groceries if that's what you want to do, or you can organize your life and go to Lowe's Food or Harris Teeter, or you can go to Walmart and Food Lion, or you can go to Lidl and what's the other one, like Aldi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or and those are. I mean, food is a much more important human need than education. And we let that up to people's choice to decide how they organize and how they purchase and how they prioritize things in their life.
Yeah.
I don't see why
wouldn't it be arguable that the quality of education doesn't just affect the individual?
No, I don't buy that shit. Nope. Doesn't affect me at all. Your education doesn't affect me.
Well, in some ways.
But I mean, in our current system, yes. In a current system where I am forced to interact with you, and you're forced to, I'm forced to pay for you, and I'm forced to, like we're thrown in this collective. By that stretching the imagination, yes, then it certainly does. But when you're talking about arguments absent of that system, no, your lack of education means nothing to me. It doesn't affect me. It really
would that not be like? Isn't that maybe a little bit of wishful thinking? Like to the idea that like, okay, well, all these uneducated people over here that are going to end up in gangs and stuff, like eventually that's not going to
in gangs.
Because people who aren't educated have less economic opportunities, and because they can't get the kind of good jobs, they're probably having all kinds of kids because they don't understand how condoms work and all this. I mean, that's what happens in our society, right?
They understand how condoms work. They just don't want to wear them, Dan. Come on.
Well, I'm just saying, again, like there are corollaries between lack of education and various societal woes, such as crime and other kinds of things.
No,
so that doesn't stay localized to one area.
I don't think it's an education thing. I think maybe it's more poverty, but not education. And
Well, but poverty is directly connected to education.
No, it's not. Fuck that. No, it's not. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, the schools in the poor areas are not going to be able to attract the same kind of talent teacher-wise than the ones.
There's just a reminder: kids that grow up and graduate in a nice school, and kids that grow up and graduate in a shit school, both don't know a goddamn thing. Dan, they're both functionally retarded human beings. They have like the most base, like they basically graduate with a 4th grade education level as it is. Now there are some kids that are obviously smarter or more self-driven, and those kids are very intelligent. And they're going to do all sorts of stuff anyway, so they can go to college.
I was a very intelligent kid, but I still didn't know what the hell I was doing with life.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like again, just to reflect on that, and I don't need to beat up on anybody who's like at school and all that, but like the things you learn in high school, completely pointless, completely stupid, a complete waste of time. It really is. A very small majority.
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
It is, dude. If I didn't know how the freaking how confection and stuff, or not confection, in an oven, sure. That
convection,
not confection. See, this is what I learned. See, this is school speaking. Private school, even. Good Lord, man, I had the creme de la creme of the school experience, and I still don't know the name. Yeah, but all I'm saying is the pointless knowledge you learn, and people call it education, and just like talk about it like it's like air or like chemo. If you have cancer, like you're taking away my chemo, you're gonna. It's like no, you're not. You're gonna be freaking fine. People were fine for thousands of years. And America was fine up until.
Well, were we though? I mean,
yeah.
In some ways.
Do you? Yeah. I mean, are you seriously telling me that civilization rose and fell on like our interpretation of Silas fucking Marner? No, it didn't.
I knew you were going to bring up Silas Marner. I thought that 30 seconds ago. I was like, he's going to bring up Silas Marner, right?
It's the dumbest book I've ever read. It was stupid, and every interpretation about it was dumb. Okay, but again. But if you...
How is Silas Marner like a spider?
He's not a spider. He's not like a spider.
Well, he lives alone, and he weaves things.
He's got 8 arms. Like, what? He liquefies his food with his fangs and his poison. But I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm okay. Again, education's fine. I'm not anti-education. Like, I want my kids to go to school and stuff, but it's dumb. If I wouldn't send my kids... Say there's absent of like the K through 12 system. If there was another system that I could easily access and I didn't have to pay for both, I would take that other system in a freaking heartbeat. And there could be other stuff, but there's no incentive to innovate, and there's no incentive to come up with a system that better suits kids' needs or kids' needs in poor or parents' needs in poor areas. You know what I mean? So it's this one size fits all government bullshit thing that's a failure.
Yeah, it's kind of your only option, right? Because
exactly.
You got to work. So
I guess that's what I'm getting at. So
it's a government-sponsored babysitter that happens to teach them some stuff.
Right. So I hit hard back on the education system because it's currently such in disarray and so terrible. Now, education's good. Like, the Enlightenment's nice. Like those things are good. I'm not saying we should be in the Stone Age here. I'm just saying that's not the be-all, end-all of human happiness and success and an indicator of anything. Like, it is in our society as it currently stands.
I would say there's, and currently there is definitely a corollary.
Sure.
I mean, maybe this might be me rationalizing because the logistical heartaches of me sending my kids to school in Chapel Hill is significant and very annoying on like a day-to-day basis. And so I try to rationalize it to myself being like, well, I'm doing this because, Levi being in high school or middle school in Orange County is probably going to be a better experience overall for him than in Durham County.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I kind of look at it that way.
Right.
However, these are also the people making 5-year-olds wear masks outside on a playground. So,
yeah, no, and no question that that's true. And I would say there's in no way, shape, or form was our private school education a bad thing for us over the overarching of it. I mean, I hated every second of it, but I hated every second of school anyway.
You're kind of supposed to hate high school. I mean,
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's a rite of passage. I mean, I didn't necessarily. There were definitely parts of it that I hated, but I mean, that's part of life. Is you gotta hate something.
Gotta hate something. Gotta nuke something. But it's all like, I don't know. So
it's like we all have jobs, right? But we all hate our jobs at some point.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, I get that. So I don't know. I would think again. I would always fall back on more choice, more localized stuff is probably a better win because it's just more responsive to the needs of the community. So and the customer and or
Yeah.
the yeah.
I mean,
So
and so right, like, and then if at the same time we like culturally, if we normalized certain virtues, right, then that would bleed over,
yeah,
right? So if we normalize the idea of like of critical thinking and
yeah.
self-reflection and humility as virtues, as opposed to indoctrination, then you
Yeah,
know,
or
because a lot of people
memorizing
are
of-
never exposed to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
Right,
we
and,
were
like-
we were taught in high school critical thinking. I think,
Yeah,
like,
to a degree.
you know, like now, granted, it was coming from sort of. It was we were still in a bubble, but at least we were
Yeah.
exposed to the idea of like analyze this and come up with an
Yeah.
idea. Now, the problem is when you get because the false bill of goods that I think we were sold was that the reasoning behind that was okay. What I would have liked to hear is yeah, okay, well, just because somebody says something, that doesn't necessarily make it true. Even grown-ups get things wrong, and the top scientists and everybody makes mistakes. So do the best you can, try to learn, question other people and yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because that's going to help you in life. But what we actually heard was, well, that was like the easy out, which was, look, you got to learn how to do critical thinking because when you get to college, you can't just memorize. And everybody go, oh, okay, I want to go to college. Well, I want to do good, so I guess I better learn how to do it. And then everybody gets to college and they realize, we don't want your critical thinking. We want you to memorize. And it's like,
Oh,
what?
it's all memorization, baby. Yeah, yeah.
And so you live in the college bubble and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I better just memorize. And then way later, when you get into the real world and you have a family and you're trying to run a business or whatever, and you're like, oh, wait. Yeah, just memorization is stupid. I actually do, if I want to be an evolved person and reach my highest plane, I do need to have critical. So like, it was the good thing to say, but like they did. I feel like we weren't taught the real reason.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, but also you're teaching a bunch of jackass high school kids. I mean, I know it's still important to teach kids critical thinking, but it's just funny. And again, but this just echoes every point I was just saying in my mind. I was like, so it is all route memorization. And it's just like and then you get to college, which you're supposed to do, so you can get a job, and you're supposed to learn a skill, and you learn no skill in college. You don't learn shit in college. All that college degree really does for the most people, or maybe, well, back when we were going to college, just prove that you went to college and you can do something. And you have a vague understanding of the field you're in.
Yeah, it
That-
basically
you know what I mean?
it proves to an employer that I know how to take bullshit tasks, complete them reasonably on time, and I know how to absorb party lines and regurgitate them with phraseology.
Yes.
That's what a college degree basically proves.
Yeah, like I legit think back to everything I did in college, and I was very good at it. And all it was is that I was good in high school too. It's just take what the teacher said, write it down, and give it back to him.
See, I
in
wasn't
whatever
good.
manner
I
they
wasn't
asked
good
us.
in college because I wasn't good at just absorbing things. Because like the reason
Oh,
I
I didn't
did,
absorb it. It was just flash memory and then instant brain drop when I was done.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I kind of wish I
retained
was
very
better
little.
at that. Like if I had been better at just sort of like jumping in line, I probably would be more successful in the business world than I am today. Because the problem is that like I'm very much like, what? Oh no, I don't want to do that. Like, you know, I'm a little bit too
Yeah.
anti-establishment for my own good.
No, I gotcha. I was just I was an adult. I made a decision to go to college as a adult. You know what I mean? I didn't go like right out of high school.
Right,
for a
right,
couple
right,
years,
right.
And I was like, all right, I'm doing this. This sucks. And then I went back to doing the same thing I was doing before college. But you know, I was pretty motivated to get it done. I just wanted to get it out of the way, and whatever.
Yeah.
It was just,
Well, that was probably
so-
to your credit. As opposed
Yeah,
to
but
people like me just going like, well, I guess I'm going to college, you know, and
But
then you
it
get
was
there and you don't know what
pointless.
you're doing.
but it was equally pointless. It was both. You know, you don't use what you did to go to school. You don't.
Well, I roundabout have gradually come back to like, you know, I make a good 30 to 40% of my income through music.
you were doing that before you went to college, or you were playing music before you went to college. That's all I'm saying.
Well, in high school, but like, I know I wouldn't have progressed.
Oh.
I don't think I would have progressed to the level. I mean, it's hard to say because
Did music courses at UNC progress your musical
Oh
ability?
yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, I might have learned that stuff eventually.
Tell me one thing you learned.
Secondary dominance.
Oh, okay. That helps
It's
you
a
out.
music theory jargon, but like, there's a
Yes.
lot of. I learned a lot of really. I mean, But see, here's the thing. I always make the joke. The level with which I enjoyed something in college was always inversely proportional to its usefulness. Right. So my favorite classes, like, and I define those as the ones I would have gone to even if I wasn't in them. Like, I really liked learning music theory. Like, here's how scales work and modulations and stuff like that. And then like that stuff's interesting, but like at the time it didn't benefit me at all. Now 15 years later I use that stuff. But like, and I loved astronomy, and I liked philosophy, psychology, stuff that doesn't really have a lot of practical value. I mean, it eventually does. Like, I've realized that, as a person, being a human being. But it's not like going in there and learning some direct sort of STEM related, tactic that's going to directly put you into an internship and then a job afterwards.
Right. So like with your music thing, you could have learned that outside of college and not spent money really learning it, or very little money. I liked philosophy. I did a couple extra of those courses just because I really, really liked it. And I could, and so what? And then I kept listening to that stuff and studying that and stuff and reading that stuff for years and years and years. So like I could have done that for free as well. You know what I mean? But it's just like,
it's different now with
very
YouTube.
little cost. No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I get that. That is true. Because like
back, we were like on the cusp.
I was podcasting it up pretty hard. The internet was really taking off. So yeah, I agree. We're now, so maybe this is it. Maybe we're at this point where going forward here, it's very much diminishing returns on education as it stands in its current form, either K through 12.
It's costing more and providing less.
Yes. And the things that you could get out of it, you can also get out of it very easily without it in a lot of ways. Yeah. So, but again, and then that would be an open spot for decentralizing and localizing and or decentralizing on a technological scale and allowing different routes to go that way. So you don't have to go to school in Carteret County if you live in Morehead City. You can go to school in Sacramento if you have a school out there. They can teach you, and you can do an online course, and you can phone in that way. I mean, there's a million ways to do it, but I'm not an educator, so I just, how it works now sucks. It really does. And then that's not even an opinion. It's a fact. It's a almost a moral failure how bad kids are educated when they're 18.
There is
something the age of 18.
There is something to the idea of physically being in a space.
Yeah, I grant that. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I'm that way too.
Like, it could be like, people say the college experience, where it's like you're away from home, and you're walking into these old buildings and it smells weird, and you're getting taught like in a room face to face by some person who's been doing this for 40 years. Like the idealized version of what a university is like that you got all these young minds that are just like, they're expanding for the first time because they're outside of their little hometown bubble, and then they're being exposed to all this stuff, and they're sort of figuring out who they are, and they're, like, there's a romanticized notion of higher education, and that's hard to replicate, even though like the basic facts could be found on YouTube or like on Curiosity Stream or something,
I guess.
Right. But there's something to like physically walking into a space and like having a book. I don't know. Maybe that's just like an old ideal. Because I spent most of my college experience being very jaded and cynical because I'm like, this is stupid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hated all of it.
No, you're right. But it was jaded. You should be jaded. It was stupid. But it's not, and you're not wrong that it's like, for some people, that's a good thing. Is it worth like $30,000 for like 6 months worth of that experience at a time? Hell no. I don't think so. But,
you talk about the economics of it, then definitely. Like, surely there could be a way.
Yeah.
For, because you have to discover who you are. And a lot of that, one of the things that like a lot of people that I know that say is like one of the most important things you can do is like just move away from your hometown for a bit. Like, you want to come back and live, great. But at some point, just please live more than 10 miles from like where you grew up. You
Yeah,
know,
that's probably pretty valuable for most people.
just because so you
That's
realize
good
that there's
advice.
different people out there,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. I do always feel like I go back to thinking about professors and stuffy old buildings and guys have been there for 40 years. And I just think the Futurama quote, where professor's like, Fry, you can't take this class. I don't teach. I'm a professor. Like, I can't teach. I'm a professor.
Yeah.
He's like,
I mean,
he's the
I
only,
can think of
but,
just as
sorry.
many, I can think of plenty of examples back in the day that like, that are of the best and the worst.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the jaded old academic who like has no teaching ability, who doesn't care, wrote the textbook because it's a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know,
And then,
it's
the,
the
T,
poor
the
the
TA
poor
does
TAs do all the
does all
actual
the
work.
Yeah.
But then I had a few though that were like this. My astronomy professor, man, that guy, I forget his name. It was like something Norwegian, like I don't know, Scandinavian. That guy was so cool. Like you could tell that he liked talking about this kind of stuff, and he recognized that like the random kids, they don't need to know how quasars are formed, but it's still cool, right? Like there was enough of those
Yeah.
people, like it's and I had some of my music professors were some of this kind of the same way. You know, they because everybody
I bet
learns
that's probably true. Yeah.
everybody learns music in a different way. You know, so to see some of these people that they would recognize, okay, well Dan is this way and he's into this stuff. That's the way his brain works, and so like I could see how that would be rewarding. You know, but I guess the reason I remember those people specifically is because they were the exceptions to the vast majority of them, which were just like,
Yeah. My
old
my
tenured blowhards.
my slam poetry professor was a real hard ass,
You had a slam poetry.
but he really brought out the best in me. You know, it was constant criticism. He just talked eloquently about he just no. I did not take slam poetry.
That's funny.
I did. Yeah, that's a great dated reference. Ooh, slam poetry. Ooh,
She's in the phone book.
she's in the phone book. I watched that a couple days ago. Oh, never mind. I was texting you guys pictures of that, or I texted Jeremy specifically. I think about something.
I haven't watched that forever. I need to pull that
Yeah,
one out.
my buddy showed me he was watching it like the day before. I was like, that's great. It was like Friday night. I think Sally was starting to fall asleep on the couch. I was like, I'm putting this on. I was like, I love every second of this movie. It's so good.
Yeah, even the parts that are, there's a certain there's a certain cleverness. Like some old movies, and that movie's 20 years old, so it's old.
Oh yeah.
But like some movies, like the longer you go away from them, the less relevance they have. And there's certain elements that kind of hold up, and there's certain elements that are dated. You know what I mean? But some of those movies, like even the dated elements, the farther you get away from them, the cooler it makes them.
Sure.
Right? Like Jaws or something like that. Like, that was cutting edge at the time. And like you watch it now and you're like, all right, well the character stuff still feels real. The effects are it's very 70s, like the outfits, but like now the fact that it's very 70s, like that's part of what's cool about it. And I think High Fidelity is the same way. Right? Like it feels very much of the late 90s. They got lots of vinyl and stuff and it's kind of hipster, but like that now it's part of the movie.
Right.
Because at the time it
yeah,
was just
for
present
sure.
day.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So yeah, it works. Like the story is emblematic symbolic of its time. And it's a period piece, Dan. It really is. No, it's probably not, but whatever. But it works. It works in that nostalgic vibe. I guess.
Yeah. But it's still slightly universal in the sense that like who hasn't gone through a what does it all mean phase?
You are.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I don't have anything clever to say about High Fidelity at the moment. I just really like the movie.
Speaking of, I watched Enemy of the State the other day. We could do
that's a fun one.
A whole thing on Enemy of the State, man. Talking about like a movie that's ahead of its time. Like I remember when everybody.
I'd like
watched
to watch that again.
I think it was on. I don't know if it was. I forget what service it was on. Anyway, but it was just like remember when that movie came out and everybody's like, "This is ridiculous." It's like it's Jerry Bruckheimer produced. This fast editing, and like they can't do
Right.
that with cameras and stuff. And it's like they're not going to do. And then you watch it in 2022, and you're like, they can literally do basically
We
everything
do
in
like
that
all
movie
that.
now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that movie was ridiculed when it came out for being ridiculous, but now, it's like,
Yeah,
you can
man.
do that. They're following you everywhere. They got satellites watching. They can track every purchase you make. Even the little part where they zoom the camera around, and it's like a
Yeah.
CG rendering of stuff. Like we kind of do that now.
Oh, yeah, for
you
sure.
know and so the idea like, oh, you're a person of interest, oh, we'll just turn off all of your ability to do business and having any, it's just like, it's crazy how forward thinking that movie was.
I want to go ahead and watch the Black Mirror series again. Because I watched it really fast, like all the way through. And I was like,
Yeah,
wow, this is
I watched
crazy.
those a
Well,
few
this is
years
crazy.
ago.
Well, this is crazy. And then like everyone's like, that movie's like real life. Like that's what's happening. I was like, okay. I'm not the movie, the series. I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I get it. So like I want to watch those again because I do remember watching some of that. And like every now and again hear someone reference something like that's just like in Black Mirror. I was like, fuck, that's right. They did say that. I was like, cool. I gotta go check that out again.
Yeah.
There's some creepy stuff in that show, but yeah, whatever. Life imitates art. Art imitates life. Whatever. How it goes.
Yeah.
It goes both ways, I think. But
Well, at a certain point, the dystopias of the past will now look like utopias relative to the present.
yeah. Well, look, man, seriously, legit, dude. If I mean, I don't know if you've ever read or listened to like the audiobook of 1984 all the way through. We've done that recently. It's worthwhile.
Yeah.
I read it and then I watched. There's a movie from the 80s. I think it's on Netflix. It's actually a pretty good interpretation of the book. That's
you told me
worthwhile
about it.
watching. Yeah, just be prepared for like lots of full frontal nudity, like lots of it. I think it's PG-13 too. It's just like there's a lot of naked dudes and girls in this movie.
This is the 80s.
Just standing there, man. Nobody cares. It was an art. It's a period piece. It was good.
Yeah.
But no, it's a pretty creepy movie. It's a creepy story in general. And in fact, I thought this the other day. Maybe I'll send you the picture. Like, there's those pictures of like Zelensky on the screen, like in front of like world leaders and like congresses or whatever. And it's just like, just in my mind was like, this is really kind of that Big Brother poster. It's like it's really creepy, man. It's
Yeah.
like, but I mean, it's not the same thing. But it's like you got the. It is weird, man, because like in 1984 they got those like 2 minutes of hate where like they just changed the story on the screen and then they show the enemy that you're supposed to hate that day, and it's like Eurasia or it's the Pacific one, I forget what they're called, and just like people just start screaming at the screen and there's these pictures of violence and they just have all this stuff, and then they put the bad guy up that you're supposed to all scream at, and then the crowd they just wrap themselves to a frenzy and they just all hate this dude because they're in a room and the screen tells them to hate it. It's not, and it's not like it's pathetic how it draws to normal life, but it's like it's almost sounds like a fifth grader wrote it, but it's so freaking dead on. It's not even funny. But like it was written forever ago, it wasn't like if you were to write it now, you'd be like, okay, I see what you're doing there, George.
Yeah.
I get it. But like stuff was written in the freaking 50s or something like that.
40s.
60s.
It was written in 48, which is by 84. It's like a switch.
Oh, that's right. I should know that. Yeah,
Well,
that's
then
crazy,
you
man.
got like Apple doing the 1984 commercial.
Oh yeah.
And like now Apple is like the big conglomerate.
Right. Yeah,
meet the new boss. I mean, that's Orwellian in the perfect form. I mean, that's what Animal Farm
it really is.
Like Animal
Ooh,
Farm, like the
yeah, you're
animals
right.
take over. And like all animals are equal, right? And then once they get into power, it's
some
some
animals
animals
are less
are
equal.
with other. And then so I mean, then you had like it was directly about the communist revolution, right? Where like once they all got into power, then the Trotsky and all these other guys, they were like enemies of the state and stuff. And
It's almost like human nature is kind of predictable.
yeah,
At
people
times.
are shitty.
We're doomed. That's it. Game over, man. Game over. Oh, the dog's here. Very nice.
Yeah, he smells real bad.
Oh, that's all right. Good buddy. All right. Well, I think we should call it a night. We're right
We're
at an hour.
40 seconds from an hour.
I'm not going to drag it out. Not going to drag it out. Sorry, Hector. Not going to drag it out.
It'll be all right.
Okay. Time for bed. Those
Powered by StreamYard.
Those street tacos are putting me into a coma.
Tacos rule.
They are really good. I enjoyed it. It was great. Downtown Newport, there's a taco joint. It's actually or Mexican restaurant. It's very good.
Huh.
Exactly. Good to know. Just so you know, it's there. Okay.
All right.
Later.